Three Tales of a Parrot. Everything told here happened in ancient times. In those days, it was like this. You'd travel for a day and reach one kingdom, travel another day, and you'd reach another. And, of course, every kingdom, whether large or small, had its own king. After all, what kind of kingdom is it if there is no king? In those distant years, a woodcutter lived in a thick, dense forest. He had neither much nor little property, a gray donkey, a sharp axe, and a cheerful song. The woodcutter also had a lovely little house in a clearing, and in the house, a pleasant wife. How could one not be happy? He would have been happy, if only his wife weren't so sad. When the woodcutter went into the forest or took wood on his donkey to sell in the city, his wife grew bored with no one to exchange a word with. When she started the fire, she would talk to the flames. When she went to the well, she spoke to the water. When she began to cook, she struck up a conversation with the spoons and bowls. But they all just listened and never answered. It was enough to make her cry, and the woodcutter's wife often wiped away tears with her apron. One day, the woodcutter came home and said, "Look, dear wife, what I found in the forest," and he handed her a doll. The wife looked and was enchanted. She never knew such dolls existed. Dressed in silk and velvet, with black hair, blue eyes, rosy cheeks, and scarlet lips, it looked as if it were about to speak. The wife laughed with joy. From then on, she never cried again. While her husband was in the forest, she did her chores and talked to the doll. Truthfully, the doll only listened too, but it looked on with blue eyes and smiled with scarlet lips. So it seemed to the woman that the doll understood everything. Time is like a road. Less lies ahead, more lies behind. One evening, the woodcutter and his wife were sitting at the table in their little house having supper. The doll also sat at the table, watching them with its round blue eyes. Suddenly, there was a knock at the window. Who could that be? Wondered the wife. The woodcutter said nothing, but rose and threw open the window. A bird flew into the room and landed in the middle of the table. Even the woodcutter was surprised. He had seen a great many birds in the forest, but never one like this. The bird bowed its crested head and spoke in a human voice. "May your home have plenty of everything, except for tears and sorrow." "Thank you for the kind word," said the woodcutter, who often visited the city market and had learned polite manners there. "But tell us, winged signor, who might you be?" "I am a wonder bird, a talking parrot. I have flown here for a reason. I need that doll sitting at your table. My mistress, the beautiful Rosalinda, has not stopped missing it since she lost it. A squirrel living in a pine tree by the porch once saw the doll through the window and told a blue-feathered jay. The jay told a magpie, and the magpie carried the news on her tail straight to the palace where her kinswoman, the court crow, lives. And what a magpie and a crow know is known to all birdfolk, so I have come for the doll." "Oh, wife," said the woodcutter, "we must give the doll back if the owner has been found." But the wife hugged the doll tight to her chest. "I won't even think of giving it back. I cherished it like my own daughter, and now I'm to give it to some unknown Rosalinda I've never even heard of?" "What?" the parrot marveled. "You haven't heard of the wise and beautiful Rosalinda? Well, then I shall tell you of her noble and kind deeds. Listen." The parrot's first tale. Once there lived a wealthy merchant. He had a daughter, as beautiful as the moon and sun appearing in the sky at once. Her name was Rosalinda. One day, the merchant prepared for a long voyage to overseas lands. Before leaving, he asked Rosalinda, "My daughter, what gift shall I bring you from distant shores? Perhaps a dress embroidered with gold, or a precious necklace?" "Ah, father, I need neither dress nor necklace. If you have decided to give me a gift, bring me a wonder bird, a talking parrot that lives in an overseas land. You have set 3 old nannies to watch me, but they only grumble at me and quarrel with each other. I have my favorite friend, a beautiful doll, but she cannot speak. So you see how much I need a talking parrot." The merchant laughed at his daughter's whim, but promised to fulfill her wish. Then he boarded his ship and set sail. Rosalinda remained with her 3 nannies. Now, you must know that the nannies fussed over her as if she were a helpless infant. They wouldn't let her take a step or let a speck of dust fall on her. Within 2 days, they bored Rosalinda to death. After all, she was already 16 years old. On the 3rd day, while the nannies were still fast asleep, Rosalinda took her favorite doll and secretly ran into the forest for a walk. In a meadow, she saw a large-eyed dragonfly and decided to catch it. She ran after it, leaving the doll under a bush. Rosalinda chased the dragonfly, and the dragonfly led her deeper and deeper into the forest. Finally, the dragonfly grew tired of the game, flew up, and vanished. The girl looked around. She was in a thick, dense forest with no paths or tracks. She began searching for the way home, and got even more lost. As the sun began to set, Rosalinda grew tired, lay down among the roots of an oak tree on fallen leaves, and fell asleep. The sun set, the moon rose, the moon set, and the sun rose again. Yet Rosalinda slept on. However, a young prince was not sleeping that early morning. He was galloping through the forest on a fine horse in pursuit of a white deer. Suddenly, his horse reared up. The prince grew angry and whipped the horse, but it wouldn't budge. Then the prince saw a girl of unseen beauty sleeping at the roots of the oak. His heart was torn in two. One half wanted to chase the deer. The other told him to stay forever by the girl's side. But then the prince reasoned that while the girl slept, he would have time to shoot the deer and bring the precious prize to the beauty as a gift. He took a silk handkerchief from his belt and covered the girl's face so that no one, not even the sun itself, could gaze upon her beauty. Then he spurred his horse and galloped away. While the prince chases the deer, let us stay with Rosalinda. She woke up and saw her face was covered with a silk handkerchief, but there was no one around. Rosalinda was surprised, hid the handkerchief, and set out again to find her way. She searched for more than a day, and finally found a road. The road led her straight to a palace. The girl was a bit shy. She had never been in a royal palace before. Now what could she do? She was so tired and hungry. So she quietly knocked on the cast-iron gates. The king himself hurried to meet her, took her hand, and led her into the palace like a guest of honor. Rosalinda lived in the palace for 3 days and became so dear to the old king that he began to plead with her. "Stay with me, child. It has been a year since my daughter vanished. She would be the same age as you now. When I hear your bright laughter, it seems to me she has returned, and grief does not torment my heart so much." Rosalinda asked, "What happened to your daughter?" Sighing, the king told her how a year ago, an old man appeared at the palace, asking for shelter. The king did not refuse, and told his courtiers to treat him like a noble guest. But that wasn't enough for the old man. He wanted to try on the royal crown. Naturally, the king refused, for a crown is not an old hat. Then the old man said, "Then you shall have neither crown nor daughter." That same day the old man vanished, and with him, the king's only daughter. No matter how much they searched, she was never found. Rosalinda listened to this sad story and thought, "My father won't return for a long time, so there's no one to worry about me. I lost my favorite doll in the forest. That means only grumbling nannies wait for me at home. Well, let them wait. I will help this old king forget his sorrow, even if only for a little while." And so, she stayed. Rosalinda sang songs to the king, or told funny stories to amuse him. When the king was busy with royal affairs or sleeping, and he loved to sleep, the girl walked in the palace gardens. One day, she wandered into the most secluded corner of the old park, near a half-ruined pond. Above the pond stood a tower, locked with 7 rusty bolts. The uneven stones it was built from were overgrown with wild moss and lichen. Rosalinda sat by the pond and watched a spider weaving a web by the tower door. The spider worked diligently. In less than an hour, the entire door was covered in a silvery, dense net. Not even a gnat could fly through. Rosalinda marveled at the 8-legged weaver's skill and returned to the palace. She came to the pond the next day too. She saw that the web was completely torn. "How strange," thought Rosalinda. "It seems someone entered the tower. No, that can't be." Rosalinda sat by the pond until evening, but it was quiet and empty. Any other girl would have just left, and that would be that. Rosalinda left too, but as she stepped on the grass, she straightened every bent stem and every crushed leaf behind her. The next morning, the grass was trampled. This meant someone had indeed come there. See how clever Rosalinda was. This time, she didn't return to the palace in the evening. She hid behind a briar bush and sat there until midnight. Exactly at midnight, a whistle was heard, and a dragon flew to the shore of the pond. It crawled to the tower door, struck the ground, and turned into an old man. The old man took a small gilded key hanging from a long chain around his neck and moved it across the door from left to right. The heavy door, with 7 rusty bolts, swung open silently. The old man entered the tower. Fearless Rosalinda slipped in after him on tiptoe. No sooner had she slipped inside than the door closed just as quietly. Rosalinda hid in a dark corner and waited. The old man lit a lamp, and bats flitted away. Then Rosalinda saw a girl no older than herself, sitting on a straw mat. "What will you tell me today?" asked the wizard, for it was clear the old man was a wizard. But the girl remained silent. "Ah, I forgot to unlock your lips," cried the old man, and he moved the golden key across the girl's lips from left to right. "Well, what do you say?" he repeated. "No," said the girl. The wizard grew so angry that he struck the ground twice. The first time he turned into a dragon, the second time back into an old man. "Nasty, disobedient girl," he shouted. "Sooner or later you will say yes." "No," said the girl. "Well, well," grumbled the wizard. "Now let's eat. I'm quite hungry myself." He stamped his foot, and a table appeared laden with food and drink. The old man and the girl began to eat. Hidden in her dark corner, Rosalinda's mouth watered. She hadn't eaten all day either. After eating his fill, the old man said, "A heavy meal always makes me sleepy. Women love to chatter. If there's no one to talk to, they talk to themselves. So I won't lock your lips now. Chatter away while I sleep. No, so you don't run away, I will lock your hands and feet." The wizard stamped again. The table vanished, and in its place appeared a soft bed covered in carpets. Then he took his key and moved it across the girl's hands and feet from right to left. Immediately, the girl was as if bound by heavy chains, unable even to move. The wizard flopped onto the bed and was snoring loudly that very minute. Then the girl truly began to speak, bitterly lamenting her fate. "Oh, how miserable I am! For a whole year I have languished in this dark tower. The evil wizard will let me go if I agree to steal my father's crown for him. And every night I say no. For if I say yes, the wizard will take the king's form, and my poor father will turn into a mule that carries water. I will surely die here, for I will never say yes." "Don't cry, sister," whispered Rosalinda, approaching the girl. She quietly took the chain with the key from the sleeping wizard's neck and quickly locked the old man's hands and feet. She had seen everything and noted it all from her dark corner. Then Rosalinda freed the girl, opened the tower doors with the same key, and ran with her to the palace. Many happy tears were shed when the king saw his daughter alive and well. The next day, Rosalinda said to the king, "Now that you have your own daughter, you no longer need me. I beg of you, give me a carriage so I may return to my father's house." But the king and his daughter pleaded with Rosalinda to stay until she agreed to visit a while longer. There were balls and festivities. The girls became such friends that they called each other sisters. As for the wizard, the king ordered him to be blown up along with the tower, and a high hill was raised on that spot. "That is all," the parrot bowed grandly. "Now you know how wise, kind, and beautiful my mistress Rosalinda is." "Oh, what an interesting story you have told us, Señor Wonderbird," exclaimed the woodcutter's wife. The woodcutter nodded. He always agreed with his wife. She continued, "Of course, I will give Rosalinda her doll, but not before I hear what happened next. You said nothing of the prince, Señor Parrot. My husband and I don't even know if he killed the white deer." "Well then," said the parrot, "listen to what happened next." The parrot's second tale. The Spanish princess, daughter of the Spanish king, turned 16. It was time for her to marry. Suitors heard of this, and a great many gathered from all ends of the earth. There was an Indian Raja, the heir to the French throne, a Portuguese prince, a Persian Shah, and more counts and dukes than one could count. Last to arrive was the Turkish Sultan, old and bow-legged. The princess watched the suitors through a peephole while her father received them in the grand hall, and she laughed until she fell. Only twice did she not laugh. The first time was when she saw the Portuguese prince, for he was stately, handsome, and she liked him very much. The second time she didn't laugh was when she saw the Turkish Sultan. He was so very frightening. The princess's father was at a loss. All the suitors were noble and wealthy. How to choose a worthy one? For he loved the princess as much as any father loves his only daughter, crown or no crown. He thought for 3 days and finally came up with a plan. The princess would throw a golden ball at random. Whomever it hit would become her husband. On the appointed day, the suitors gathered before the palace. The princess came out onto the balcony, and all the suitors squinted at once, blinded by her beauty. Then the princess threw her golden ball. She aimed, of course, at the Portuguese prince. But unfortunately, the Turkish sultan stood right next to him. Seeing where the ball was flying, he pressed close to the prince. The ball touched the prince's shoulder, but alas, it also touched the shoulder of the cunning Turk. Both stood before the king and his daughter. The king was embarrassed. He had devised the ball game so he wouldn't have to choose. Moreover, his favorite daughter, looking at her 2 suitors, both cried and laughed, and the king couldn't understand which one she wanted to marry. "Your Royal Majesty," said the Portuguese prince, "I love your daughter and ask for her hand." "I like the princess no less," countered the Turkish sultan. "There's no need for such a beautiful maiden to marry a green youth who hasn't even been married once. It's a different story with me. I have 100 wives and know well how to treat them. So do not hesitate, your majesty. Give your daughter to me." But the princess said firmly, "My husband can only be one to whom I am the only one, like the heart in one's chest." And she looked at the Portuguese prince. The king finally understood what his daughter wanted and replied, "It cannot be helped, your Turkish sultanate. Look for your 101st wife in other lands, for I will not give my daughter to you." The Turkish sultan was terribly enraged. In a fury, he trampled his turban, saying it deserved no better treatment if its master could be so humiliated. Finally, he said to the king, "Since your daughter will not be mine, let her be no one's." With those words, he picked up his turban and left. The next day, the Spanish princess fell gravely ill. She grew thin and pale by the hour, her eyes sank deep. The illness cramped her body, and she doubled over like a binder of sheaves. Doctors did not know what to call the illness, or how to cure it. In distress, the king struck the bell of the council. "Signors of the council," he said, "my daughter wastes away day by day. Tell me what to do." The wise signors replied, "We have heard that in Italy, at the court of one of the kings, lives a girl named Rosalinda. She is as wise as she is beautiful. She found that king's missing daughter and saved her. Send for her. Perhaps she can save your daughter too." "Excellent," cried the king. He ordered ships to be prepared immediately. He appointed the eldest signor of the council as ambassador. The ships were already weighing anchor when the king ran panting to the shore. "Ah, eldest signor, I almost forgot to give you the iron glove. If that king does not agree to let Rosalinda go, throw the glove at his feet as a sign of war." The ambassador bowed, took the glove, and the ship sailed away. The glove was nearly needed, for the king, Rosalinda's foster father, flatly refused to let his daughter go to Spain. War was imminent until Rosalinda herself ran into the hall. Hearing why the ambassador had come, she said, "Do not be upset, dear king. I will go to Spain for a short while. Perhaps I can help the Spanish princess." She persuaded the king until he agreed. The ships returned to Spain. The Spanish king and the saddened Portuguese prince met Rosalinda. As soon as she stepped ashore, she said, "Lead me to your daughter quickly." It was just in time, for the princess had almost faded away. This is no ordinary illness, Rosalinda told herself. There is something more here. She locked herself with the princess in her chambers and ordered that no one enter for 3 days and 3 nights. The Spanish king, with his own royal hands, placed 7 large wax seals on the doors. Evening came. Rosalinda wanted to light a candle, but had no flint or steel. She looked out the window and noticed a dim light far away on a hill. Without a second thought, she took a candle, jumped out the window, and ran toward it. The further she went, the brighter the fire became. When she grew close, she saw a large bonfire. On the fire stood a huge cauldron where something was boiling. An old bow-legged Turk in a turban was stirring the brew and muttering in Turkish. "Ah," thought Rosalinda, "is it in this cauldron that the life of the Spanish princess is melting?" She said to the Turk, "Oh, poor man, rest a little. You are very tired." "I cannot rest," the Turk replied. "I have been stirring for 3 months, day and night. It won't be long now. Soon I will leave for Turkey, before my 100 wives quarrel too much." "Well then, let me stir for you," said Rosalinda. "Stir, stir, but I swear by the beard of Mahomet, if you stir poorly, I will boil you in this cauldron too." The Turk sat on the ground, cross-legged, and Rosalinda diligently stirred the foul brew with a dried owl's foot. "Am I stirring well?" she asked. "Stir, stir," grumbled the Turk. "And you should sleep," said Rosalinda. The Turk fell asleep. Then Rosalinda took the cauldron of magic potion and tipped it right over the Turk. Oh, what a sight! The Turk immediately became as thin as a splinter, shriveled up, and finally turned into a pile of dust. Rosalinda lit her candle from the glowing embers and rushed back to the palace. When she returned, the Spanish princess was sleeping peacefully for the first time in many days. A blush appeared on her pale cheeks. On the day appointed by Rosalinda, the Spanish king broke the 7 seals and opened the doors. His merry and healthy daughter threw herself onto his neck. The king rewarded Rosalinda with rich gifts and sent her back to Italy with honors. The Spanish princess hugged her and asked her not to forget she had a sister in Spain, and the Portuguese prince added, "And a brother." "That is all," said the parrot. "How can it be all?" cried the woodcutter's wife. "I won't give the doll until I know everything to the end." "Yes," the woodcutter said thoughtfully. "One doesn't hear such wonderful stories every day, even at the market. So please, Wink Signor, tell us what happened next." The parrot said, "I could talk about my mistress until morning. It seems dawn is breaking. By sunrise, I will have time to tell the shortest and most joyful story of the beautiful Rosalinda." The Parrot's Third Tale. In a kingdom in southern Italy lived a king. He had an only son, as slender as a cypress, as agile and strong as a young lion, and as handsome as the moon in the sky. More than anything, he loved hunting. One day he heard that in western Italy, beyond 10 mountains and 10 dales and 9 forests, in a 10th forest lived a white deer. The prince took his huntsman and galloped off. He was gone for 2 months, and when he returned, his father did not recognize him. A wicked ailment had taken hold of the prince and sapped his strength daily. He wouldn't eat or drink. All day he lay on his gilded bed and sighed heavily. The king questioned the huntsman, but they knew nothing. They only said the prince had galloped away from them after a white deer, and returned in the evening, saddened and without prey. "Oh, holy Madonna!" exclaimed the king. "To suffer so over some forest creature." The king resorted to a trick. He ordered a deer from the nearby forest to be caught, and secretly painted it with the whitest paint in the kingdom. Then he released it into the palace park, and ran to his son. "My son, get up quickly, go to the park, and you will see what your soul longs for." The prince leapt from his bed and, staggering from weakness, ran to the park. When he saw the white deer from afar, a groan escaped his chest. What use was a deer if, through his own fault, he had lost the beautiful girl and his heart? From that hour, the prince became even worse. His life was melting like a thin candle. All the doctors in the kingdom were already in the palace dungeon, because none of them could cure the prince. In this sorrowful time, news reached the king of the wise Rosalinda. The king sent ambassadors with an iron glove, just in case, and sent for her. "What a misfortune," said Rosalinda's foster father, throwing up his hands. "It seems all kings have decided to show the cut of their gloves in turn. It's a restless business being your father, dear Rosalinda." "Remember how you yourself grieved for your daughter," the girl replied, "and do not hold me back." Rosalinda set out with the ambassadors. On the way, they told her everything they knew of the prince's illness. Rosalinda realized that the forest where the prince hunted was the very same one where she had been lost. "And what is the prince's name?" she asked. The ambassadors replied, "The prince's name is Gabriel Giovanni Marcello Alfonso Pietro Cesare Antonio Carlo Mario Domenico Paolo Giuseppe." Rosalinda secretly pulled the silk handkerchief from her bodice, the one someone had used to cover her face in the forest. She looked at it and saw letters embroidered along the edge. GGMAPCACMDPG. Rosalinda gave a quiet smile. They arrived, and Rosalinda was led to the prince's chambers. Her heart filled with pity, for the young and handsome prince was close to the grave. He lay with eyes closed as if dead. "Open your eyes, dear prince, if you wish to be strong and healthy again," said Rosalinda. I do not wish to open my eyes, he replied. Let me die in peace. I will not, said Rosalinda, until you look at what I hold in my hand. She took out the handkerchief, but the prince didn't move. Then Rosalinda slyly said, Guess, dear prince, what this is. Yesterday yours, today mine, and tomorrow it will belong to no one, or to both of us. As ill as he was, curiosity got the better of him. He opened one eye. And what did he see? His own silk handkerchief, the one he used in the distant forest to cover the face of the sleeping beauty he had admired for a moment, and lost forever. The prince opened his second eye, and saw the one for whom his heart pined. His eyes shone like a healthy man's. Rosalinda said, Now you have solved the riddle and must rest. Close your eyes. I don't want to close my eyes, cried the prince. I am afraid I will lose you again, but I would gladly eat something, perhaps some strong broth. From that minute, Rosalinda did nothing but feed the prince broth. By order of the happy king, broth was simmering in the palace kitchen constantly. In 3 days, they made so much that meat became expensive throughout the kingdom. Soon, the prince recovered and asked his father to prepare for the wedding feast. Word flew everywhere that Rosalinda was marrying the prince. Rosalinda's biological father arrived first. He had just returned from overseas and brought the gift she asked for, the talking parrot. The gift was perfect for the wedding. Her foster father and her sister also came. The Spanish king, the princess, and the Portuguese prince sailed across the sea too. The feast was a grand success. Now you have heard everything to the very end, said the parrot. No, no, cried the woodcutter's wife. Not everything. How not everything? Protested the parrot. Once it reaches a wedding, the story is over. And how is Rosalinda doing now? The woodcutter and his wife asked together. Very well, but she misses her favorite doll. So I flew to find it. The woodcutter's wife thanked the parrot for his true stories and gave back the doll. Perhaps you feel sorry for the woodcutter's wife? You think she is lonely without the doll? Do not worry. She was comforted because she had a baby daughter. And a real daughter is much better than even the most beautiful doll. Well, you might say, that means Rosalinda is playing with the doll. Not at all. She had a son, and a son is just as good as a daughter. The Spanish princess, who married the Portuguese prince, had both a son and a daughter at once. The doll was given to Rosalinda's first foster sister. She hadn't married yet.